Young, and I'm going to talk about your week 4 assignments. For week 4 on the discussion, you have an assignment for rewriting an email. Basically, what you want to do is take this email and revise it. There's issues with tone, language, professionalism, and really kind of going a little bit off topic at some points. So, we want you to rewrite this in a professional manner. This should be more of a form, it should be much more formal than this. So, you want to change the subject line to be professional, informative, include a verb, the opening, because you can see the subject line is not appropriate either. The opening should front load the topic and be direct, so it should get to the point, be concise, and then the body should provide information, good information, be logical, and discuss only one topic and be easy to read. And the closing should conclude with action, information, dates or deadlines, summation of the message, and a closing thought. So, you want to take this message and rearrange. Basically, just revise the delivery entirely. I mean, this is not an appropriate message that would be sent out, and there's a lot of different things going on here. So, while you're doing this, look at best practices, kind of think about, you want to be direct, you want to be concise. You want to try to, I would close with some kind of positive thought, note, something like that. Gesture, goodwill, something like that. So you want to revise that, and then, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty obvious if you read it that you're going to be able to tell that it is definitely not the way you'd want to communicate. And based on a lot of the discussions that we've already done, I think that you're going to be able to apply some of that and revise this email pretty easily. I'm sorry, that's the wrong assignment. I just clicked on the wrong assignment. There we go. Okay. This one's a cover letter and resume. I don't know how many of you have done resumes. Maybe you've done 2 or 3. You might have experience doing this, and some others. Some of you may not. You want to create a cover letter that convinces the recruiter about your competency for this job and resume. Your cover letter and resume must incorporate the following. Cover letter should be concise, to the point, follow the 3-paragraph structure. Make sure to follow that 3-paragraph structure. That is very, that's kind of a key point to that part of the assignment. Resume should be no more than 2 pages long in appropriate format and following all the standards associated with that format. Here's what I'm seeing. I see a lot in different classes is that students will say, well, it can be 2 pages, so let me do 2 pages. 2 pages is fine if you have that much history, but what I don't want to see is 2 pages with a lot of white space. If you can fit on 1 page, I would really do that. I mean, if it's too busy on 1 page, that's one thing. But what I see is the students, they'll like set their margin way over, and they'll put like the date or whatever, and then they'll put all their information on that like right kind of side of the page, and then there's all this white space. I don't really think that you should do that. I've done resumes, and I've actually had professionals do my own resume, and that never is something that there's not going to be a lot of white space in a resume that's professionally done. It's just a wasteful. There's a lot of people that will say, and there's this historically, I've heard it a million times, and I actually worked with an HR recruiter who's, they wanted to see 1-page resumes. They didn't want to have to, and the only situation where that's not appropriate is if you just have so much integral, experience, education, whatever that's applicable to the job that you're applying for, that you have to have 2 pages. That's one thing, but if you don't have to do that, I wouldn't. The resume must have an impressive, original, objective, and a summary of qualifications. The resume must include your capabilities and special skills, preferably using action verbs. Always use action verbs, and don't use the same action verbs over and over again. One of the most popular ones is demonstrated, maintained, worked. You know, worked is really, I would try to use, not, I would try to use something other than worked. And maybe that's just a pet peeve of mine, but that's just kind of a plain verb. Always try to use different verbs for every skill. Don't keep using the same one. Demonstrate it over and over again. That's, you don't want to see the same one over and over again. That's a very glaring, it's very common, but it's very kind of, you want to use different ones. Support your responses with examples. So, if you have any, but with a resume, you may not. If you have any sources, if you're writing or creating your own resume from scratch, I don't really know why you don't actually have to have a source for that. Unless you're just using some template or something from another, from another format or something from another source. But I'm assuming you're writing your own resume here, so that's about it for that. And I think that's kind of a common sense thing too. But just try to use those tips to keep your, to get a really best practice and get a good grade. But I mean, obviously, this is something you can really use. You might be applying for jobs in your life, and learning how to write a resume is a very good skill to have, obviously. So, just trying to give you some tips based on my own experience and from knowing people who recruit and review resumes, having worked in an HR department. So, just letting you know, and if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. I'll be happy to assist. Thanks, and have a great